There's Tom Robbins again. Hi, Tom. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah.
And
Hi,
Tom
Dave.
is
How you doing?
unmuted. Hi, Tom. So we've got Tom from Switchy, we've got Rich Harvey, and we've got Kay Rogage.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Rich, just remember you're muted for now, but you probably know that. And
It's
Rich is
dog protection.
obviously out in the sunshine. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session called Digital Schmidgital. Yep, that's it. You heard it here. What is Digital Schmidgital? Well, you're about to find out. We have on this panel session, debate, whatever you call it, Kay Rogage. Is that right, Kay? Is it Rogage? Rogage?
Almost. Kay Rogage.
Rogage, right. Okay,
Yeah.
then. Right, I now know. I've been desperate to ask for weeks. From Northumbria University, who is a lecturer in digital living. We've got Rich Harvey from Housing Solutions, and we've got Alistair. We've got Tom from Switchy. They come as a team.
To be fair.
Yeah, they come as a team. Right, what I'm going to do is try and present not a video this time, but a presentation. So bear with me, folks. Hopefully you'll see this. Can everyone see it? Just put a thumbs up. I can see you. Somebody speak.
Nope.
No, I can't see it.
Yeah, it's not working on the Mac for some reason. It doesn't matter. Try it now.
Yes.
Yeah,
Something.
brilliant.
There we go.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Dave Loudon has got something to work. Everyone, we entitled this Digital Schmidgital because I think certainly in all my years of dealing with IT solutions, technical solutions, business solutions, this new word, well, it's not that new anymore, digital, is out there in the stratosphere, and nobody truly, or do they know what it means? So we're going to ask our panel today if they think they know what digital means, or is it just a load of digital schmidgital? I'm going to ask the panel in succession what they first of all think digital means, and then we can have that discussion, and hopefully we'll ask questions as we go on within the panel. But the same goes for the end of this one. We'll have questions and answers. Okay, Rich, Housing Solutions, what do you think digital means in social housing?
So for me, it's probably the dream of how everyone's been talking about for years of a paperless office. Yeah. From a staff point of view, no paperwork, no printers, no letters going out to customers, and that whole end-to-end solution from a staff point of view and customer point of view of not using traditional methods of posting out letters, getting customers to sign things, but also from a staff point of view, paperwork isn't being passed from department to department.
Yeah.
I know we all dream of a paperless office. I haven't seen a 100% true paperless office yet, although my printers have had very little use over the last 3 months, which I'm hoping will continue.
Well, maybe this is the sign of things to come. We have seen certain landlords ask when they're working remotely, customers and non-customers, how do I print from home? I don't have a printer. So there you go. There's one challenge. Yeah, Kay, what's your view on it? Generally speaking, what do you think digital means? This is what you do for a living, I suppose.
Yeah, for me, it's really trying to harness data and technology to best support your business and organisational needs. Yeah. So I guess from looking at it from a social housing perspective, there are two sides to that story, and you've got your landlord side and then you've got your occupant side as well. So it's really trying to understand what you've got in terms of a digital estate, and how you can use that digital estate to respond to challenges and needs. And I think, we've got a lot of challenges at the minute with the pandemic, certainly, around understanding how we can interact with our occupants and best maintain and manage our estates, and digital data and technology provides a large portion of that and how we deal with that. And from an occupant side, I think it's about understanding how they're adapting and using technology. Certainly, I think, I know we had a bit of a chat about this the other day about how people are more open to adopt technology because we've been forced to because of a pandemic, to keep in touch with each other, to work remotely, to work paperlessly, and all the rest of it. We're kind of responding to a crisis at this moment, and certainly technology has played a big part in how we respond to that.
Yeah, I think it might just be a way to leap into the future, really. We're not quite there with digital in the landscape of social housing. That's my personal opinion. I think there's a lot more to do, a lot more, a bigger journey to go on. Tom, what's your views on it? What does digital mean, and generally, maybe, and even perhaps within social housing?
Well, I see digital really be a sort of interchangeable with differently. How can we think differently? If we get given the opportunity to perhaps start from where we are today with what we know and the technology that's available out there, how would we approach the same problem differently? But it really comes back to the problem. What is it we're trying to solve? Immediately, we've all jumped on a whole bunch of use cases, right? We've talked about ways our lives could be better and things that we could do. But I believe in a focus of starting with the problem. What is it we're trying to solve here? And then digital may be one way of solving it, but in any case, we need to be looking differently because we're handling a whole bunch of legacy problems here, but with a whole new tool set. Let's use that new tool set to solve these legacy problems.
Yeah, a few decades ago, there was a great band called Nirvana, and it's been used now as digital as Nirvana. Does it do everything? Well, I think like anything, there's not one single thing that does everything. And it's that kind of, I'm going to use a terrible cliche here called joined up thinking. There we go. Somebody had to say it. But it's how you apply it. And I think that's what Kay was saying. But I totally agree with yourself, Tom and Rich, around that's where it potentially sits at the moment. Moving on. So this goes into one of the other questions. Are we still walking, or are we ready to run yet? So there's that great phrase, don't run before you, or don't walk before you can run, or what was it? Don't run before you can walk. That's it. And what I was thinking there is, are we ready, or is the world of social housing still waking up to the fact of what digital technology and application is? Tom, how do we start with yourself there again?
I think the real challenge is that we all have to change speed together, right? We can't have one part of the organization running. We work with some fantastic clients that have got some real visionary people, but on their own, they actually can't change anything because the whole organization needs to move from a walk, even just to a fast walk would be great. Let alone a run at this stage. And that's one of the challenges, is getting everyone on board. We don't want to have, it's no good having, that toddler who realizes they can get everywhere quicker by running, that they're just buzzing around. They're not actually making any progress further forwards. So we've got to all come on that journey together. And I don't think that we are ready to run because it's such a massive step. We need to look at all those little sub steps. Let's get a fast walk, and let's even start thinking about a slow jog. I certainly don't think we're ready to run yet.
You mentioned small jog. I was thinking of a gentle canter. Rich, you're within a landlord. Your view is very pertinent here. What do you think?
I think I think we were in a similar boat to a lot of other organisations where we actually started running before we could walk.
Good point. Yeah.
So it was very much a few years ago, right, let's go out and get everyone iPads, all the staff iPads, so they can go out into the customers' homes and self-serve them without thinking truly around, are all the applications mobile friendly from a user point of view? But then also from a customer point of view, it was very much, okay, well, we want a website, we want an app, we want all of these fancy things for customers to contact us digitally without thinking about the connectivity point of view. And yes, let's get all these whizzy things in place, but if none of our customers have got affordable internet access, they're not going to be used. So
very good point.
Over the last couple of years, we've really slowed down to kind of concentrate on that the connection issues, but also from a training point of view as well. Encouraging our staff and customers to use technology. I mean, many years, I think a good example, it has to be kept simple, and the process has got to really speed up what you would usually do. I think the best example that there is out there is how the government introduced the changing of vehicle tax, where we all used to have to queue up in the post office dig out your MOT and insurance certificates. And then, of course, when it all moved online, there was obviously lots and lots of concerns, but everyone done it, and I think we all know now how much easier it is, not having to worry about, oh, where's my insurance and MOT certificate. And I think because that process has been kept really simple, it's worked really well. So hoping for us slowing down, we're thinking a bit more about, before we just chuck in new technology around, okay, well, do people have the facility to use it? And also from a training point of view, and then then encouraging its use once those bases are covered.
I heard you agree there, Kay, once or twice. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, my thoughts are that we're running with the available tech and innovation, running, speeding ahead, and there's some fabulous tech and innovation out there, but we're walking with our understanding of how to best utilize it. And in my experience working with social housing providers, they're very open and keen to be assisted with that walk. They're often just not sure where to approach it from, how to get into it, and what to do next, I
mean, it doesn't. I want to talk about something quickly before we move on to the next question, and that's really only, to be honest, I just thought of it now when you mentioned the previous example, Rich, about the kind of vehicle tax, etc. We've just heard that the government aren't ready to launch their track and trace app, because it's, funnily enough, something like too complicated than they first thought, or there's issues with it and so on. So there's another example of telling people you can do something and then actually realizing, hold on, we're not even walking yet, but we're going to jump straight in and promise people something that's not ready. My point of that isn't so much the COVID release and any political statement. My point is that too many people up and down and across the world have seen failure after failure of the adoption of technology and big promises. So, but yet again, they've seen some brilliant examples as well. But people don't remember the brilliant examples; they remember the failures. And whether it's an app, whether it's a government thing. So I just wonder if it sticks in their head. So my question is to you guys as a panel: is there a negative issue in amongst executives and people in society about yet another digital application? I'm going to ask. I'm going to throw this one back to Kay in the most general sense. Kay, what do you think?
I think certainly from an occupant perspective, there's a nervousness of adopting technology. There's a nervousness of Big Brother watching us and tracking our behaviour and tracking what we are doing. But equally, again, going back to the pandemic, my mom's now on Facebook video, she's on WhatsApp video, she's 70 years old. That would never have happened before. Yeah. So, as I said earlier, the pandemic has actually made people adapt and adopt technologies in ways that you would never have expected before. So.
Yeah, and so Rich, what do you think? And come back to you as a landlord.
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the main ones that sticks in my mind from a staff point of view was moving our DLO workforce from their daily run sheets onto tablet devices, so that they get up to date customer and job information. Diaries can be moved around during the day, and that's the main one that really sticks in my mind, I think. But now the benefits that they see is really good, reducing their traveling time, being more efficient. And obviously other stuff that we're looking at, and how then that technology is now going to then improve the customer experience, so they know when the tradesman's en route.
Tom, what I'm interested in is your views as a supplier here, and do you see that negativity when you're talking to people about, in all effects, digital solutions? Do you see this whole I've heard it before type thing? What's your views on this, Tom?
So I think one of the things to refer back to here is the sort of the natural adoption curve of technology in any kind of industry, any kind of space. And I think what we've seen is that there's a huge amount of appetite within social housing. There's a lot of really great early adopters. There's a lot of pockets of people that will give anything a go and give it a trial and give it a go. And And that's been brilliant to work with some real visionaries in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge, however, is moving from that trial of 20 here or 30 there or even 100 or so and saying, hang on, no, this is the way that we're going to work.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the big fear here. It's you know, and you can prove that, and you can prove the value proposition. But even with, you know, a tried and tested, been in the field a couple of years, proven solid ROIs, there still is a hesitancy to do the big rollout. And I think that we in technology have got a bit of a role to play in that. By constantly marketing and working with the early adopters, you sort of actually isolate the people that are going to be making the big decisions. The early adopters will get excited about anything. They're the first in the queue for an iPhone. They don't care if it works, right? They're the first to pick up a PlayStation or whatever. That they don't care. They just want it. It's cool. It's fantastic. I'll take one. Let's go. But the rest of the industry, it rightly isn't like that. This is around providing a service to a customer that does need some support, that we have a duty of care in the service. And so there's a natural hesitancy for anything particularly new. And I know that we've struggled in the past almost being too early adopted. We want to work with people that are up for the bigger transformation, which probably will be a little bit slower, but will actually happen. And that's the sort of challenge we need to take. A little bit slower, a little bit bigger.
Let's look at what are the blockers for true adoption of digital strategies. Now, I'm going to lead into that one. We've had some real experience of this over the years. Well, you talk about a digital agenda, a digital strategy, and again, people think, what's that? What is a digital strategy? They'll say things like, is that not my ICT or my IT strategy? And we say no. Before we go into the questions and ask yourself, I mean, I just like to comment that I think there's two aspects, and I think Kay mentioned this a little bit earlier, that and you both, I think you all did. There's a way to come in at this from both angles of there's the customer viewpoint and then there's the internal viewpoint. Digital optimization strategies, the adoption of technology and software and hardware needs to help the landlords themselves, the people do their jobs. That then in effect helps the customers, the tenants. But then there's the stuff the tenants use, the portals, the apps and so on, remote devices and things. So the personal blockers I've seen are wide and varied, but I just want to open that up again to Rich first this time, because he's in the landlord there and has probably seen what he's tried to adopt. Rich, do you want to give us a view there? Oh,
yeah, no, I mean, there's a comment actually in the chat window around too many suppliers offering too many different systems, and that's obviously one of the biggest challenges and blockers around getting all of that information in one place. There's always lots and lots of good ideas around, it'd be great if the customer could see this, or if the staff member could see. If we could pull a manual for the boiler of which they've got in their house, which is a great idea. Straight away they can log onto the portal, pull down the boiler, and it's where is that information currently? Where do we store what boiler and everything? And it's those sort of challenges and getting that all of information.
And that's
in one
coming
place.
back a little bit to what Ryan was talking about in the last section. About that stuff sitting there ready to bring it together, sitting with the data. It comes back to data again. So I couldn't agree more with you on that one. Tom, what's your thoughts this time?
As somebody that's got more data than at this moment in time I know what to do with, it's a big challenge, right? I've got getting on for 15 data points across thousands of homes every 10 minutes, right? There's a huge insight, and there's a point at which we sort of believe, right? We believe that at some point that data is going to do something absolutely amazing, and so far it has. We've run really interesting test hypotheses, and we talked about the upcoming mold bomb earlier today. But I think there's real potential there to do stuff. But there's two stages to this journey. One is having the data, knowing what it is, knowing how to access it. The second really is doing something with it, and that's much wider set of stakeholders. It is because the data we have is quite useful, but actually the data Rich has got, that's pretty cool data. And together as a set of data, then we've got something really cool. I would love to know. I actually don't know the boilers that my device is connected to, right? And I'd love to know what type of boiler it is, because I can enrich a whole bunch of extra information on top of that. So that's a partnership that's going to have to be between suppliers and between landlords to do something really cool.
Well, before I move on to Kay, then, I mean, you mentioned something there, but I'm going to change that ever so slightly. I think there needs to be the want, not so much the need, but the want from executives and boards to do something with that data. And I'm going to be very critical, and I know sometimes I am, but I see too many landlords and executives and board members and landlords that think they can still do with a paper report for every board meeting. And they produce big reams of paper to go through, spreadsheets and so on, when you could bring up, I don't know, Power BI or whatever, or the app dashboard. And these things exist. So there needs to be, I talked about true adoption it should be actually, of digital strategies, if anyone spotted the mistake. So the true adoption and adaption maybe is not there because there's not the want to do it. I mean, Kay, do you agree with that? Is it somehow the convincing of people? What's your thoughts on that one?
It's more that the people who make the decisions at the top level aren't necessarily the early adopters and the innovators. I think is the real challenge there. And echo what Tom says. You do tests and you deploy stuff and you look at the return on investment, and all the evidence is there, but actually getting above the person that you're currently working with to the person who holds the purse strings, those are the people that you need to convince, really. So that's where the challenges are, I find.
Well, it's I love challenges.
Legislation's got such a big role to play in this, right? Now, so we've been reporting mold data for 5 years now, and it's an interesting one because when I first joined the business, I looked on the dashboard and you're able to see on a premise by premise basis propensity for mold, and it's like 30%, right? So you've got 30% of properties out there, and I've got sort of this vision of like a moldbulance and a whole bunch of engineers jumping in the moldbulance and going out and solving the problem as soon as the alert came up. But the reality is there's bigger, more pressing concerns in the industry, and until legislation changed, and until freedom for fitness for human habitation came in, and there became quite a big stick sitting behind mold, and now it's on the agenda of the board because it's a massive risk. And the way the legislation changed, it's almost become an open-ended risk. This is the new whiplash, and something that was well down the priority list through the change of legislation has now gone right to the top. Sorry,
you were going to say something.
Mold is a good example, but equally, if we look at responding to crises again, so look at the Grenfell incident, and now landlords are having to better understand and better document the digital estate. And a lot of my research goes way back into the construction phases as well. So we're looking at open data standards, standardized ways of capturing data, to the point of being able to store your boiler in what we call an IFC schema, which is the standard sort of building data format for data exchange, which should just plug straight into your system, Tom, and you should be able to link your sensor data to it. We should be able to run, artificial intelligence routines on that says that's going to need servicing a bit quicker than you'd planned, or actually it needs servicing later on because it hasn't been used as much. So I think this is a very futuristic view, and I think the things, unfortunately, it does take crises for us to respond and adapt and change. It does take legislation for us to adapt and respond and exchange. And unfortunately, that's the way it is. We've got all the movers and shakers wanting to do the stuff, but actually to get real change, it has to be in response to something bigger and outside of our control, I think. At our level.
What I was going to ask there is, or not ask, but I absolutely agree with the fact that it takes a crisis in order for major things to happen sometimes, which is sad. But the one thing we've not talked about yet is COVID, and I totally agree with the Grenfell thing. I've talked to a number of senior people in housing over the last couple of weeks that are struggling. I mean, majorly struggling with domestic abuse in the ASB cases at the moment. And they're looking at ways they can identify and help with this and deal with it. And so we all know it's been on the news about domestic violence in the house has increased tenfold or whatever it is. But it's a significant issue. It should always be a significant issue. So sometimes they're saying that what they're actually saying to me now is we want the information, the data, and the ability, as you all said earlier, to be able to do something with it. So maybe, as Grenfell is, COVID is a wake-up call to certain issues. So I just pray that people will use things for the best. Okay. Do you have some good examples of where landlords have adopted groundbreaking digital strategies? Sorry to laugh. Rich, I assume you have.
Well, of course, my digital strategy is one of the best ones around. So I think, just touching up on a previous point, I mean, there's 4 main elements of the digital strategy that have been created at Housing Solutions. And the main one is what we've already mentioned, which is around accurate and up-to-date data. Without that, you can't do any of the other stuff. You can't go out and give everyone iPads and access to a portal with your data in the office systems is not up to date, or not even in there in the first place. It's in a spreadsheet or in someone's mind. So that's one of the main ones. And then it's around, for us, sorry, just using us as an example, is around transforming our back office processes. So once your data's up to date, make sure your processes are up to date and kind of as slick as they can be from a user experience point of view. And then once those 2 things are done, then that's when you can look at the mobile working for your staff, and then from a customer point of view, making digital first choice.
Tom, what's your thoughts on that, coming from the outside in, really? I mean, you might well say you've been involved in some, but you go about the sector as well. And is anyone leading on this? Is it something? I'm going back, Tom, to the question about walking and running. And my thoughts are, I haven't seen a raft of fantastic examples. I have in different sectors, but not housing. And we know of the guys at Bromford and others that are doing good things. But what about yourself, Tom? What have you seen out there?
I think that the challenge is in pockets. There's pockets of absolute brilliance happening all over the place, and I never cease to be amazed at the conversations that we have and some of the things that people are trying. I think the sadness, though, is the how often things are referred to as, we tried that. We tried that a few years back. We gave that a go a few years back. We did that. We've been doing IoT for 10 years, and you're like, okay. I think that the challenge is we're not getting to the critical mass on behaviors on this. And there's some fantastic stuff that's happening there, and it's just not making it to the next level. That's the real challenge for us on the technology side, is to create a proposition which people can't live without, rather than a proposition that they can brag about.
No, I totally. On you go. Sorry, I was just thinking that
and just on that approach. So one of the things that I had as a challenge at Housing Solutions was around. So we put a lot of Wi-Fi into our properties, so to allow our customers to get online. And one of the areas we first focused on was around sheltered schemes, because there was a refurbishment program going on. There's big clusters of our properties, and to be honest with you, the uptake at the beginning was very, very low. It didn't get used as much. It was like, we've spent all of this money, Rich, on Wi-Fi. We haven't seen the uptake as much as we would do. Obviously, they don't use as many of our online services as other customers, because we still have a warden, so to speak, which kind of looks after them, and they like that personal touch. And one of the things last year was around because we're planning on doubling our Wi-Fi rollout as we go on year and year into the strategy. And last year I suggested that we move on we've got a number of different care homes. And so last year, and we completed it in December, was a rollout of Wi-Fi into about 400 bed spaces into the care homes that we've got. A lot of the questions at the time were very similar to what we had experienced at sheltered schemes. Now, never did we imagine that we're in the situation that we're in now. Care homes locked down, obviously have had to lock down. And the feedback now that we've had from our care home residents and their families of how much of a lifeline that has been. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's probably only because of the situation that we're in now that it's been so successful. So we've learned a lot from that, and I think it has helped people now using that technology going forward.
I think it's going back to that lesson learned thing, isn't it? Kay, maybe more on a generic view. I mean, within, I'm not so much on the living aspects of social housing, but you might not have, but have you seen anything where landlords have specifically adopted groundbreaking strategies or are leading?
Yes, so I've definitely seen the things that Tom said, where they're trying stuff out and they're dead keen to try stuff out, but they're not being able to take it any further. And just to go back to something that both Rich and Tom have touched on about getting access to data, getting accurate data, getting up-to-date data, and I'd stress also that data needs to follow open data standards. We should be able to access technology, from an agnostic approach using open APIs, so that we can plug data and transfer data across different systems as well. So, and for me, that starts at the construction stage of a building, or if we're not at the construction stage, it's like now where people are having to create digital versions of their assets, and that has to be done in a standardized way that can be taken forward. So when you've got physical assets within that building, such as a boiler, for example, it's easy to plug into Tom's system and connect with whatever sensors he's got going on, and information that he's extracting out of that system, and linking to mold and other sensors and everything else. So I think that's really important. So I am working with social landlords in the Northeast now who are at the start of that journey. So I'll mention Your Homes Newcastle, actually, because they're just adopting what they call their BIM strategy, so building information strategy. And I haven't been part of that development of that strategy, but I've been observing them as a case study. And that's been really interesting to watch. And actually what's happened is they've went through the whole process of trying to get their data in a standardized format, following all the rules and regulations and, British standards and PAS 11s and ISOs and whatever else. And then they've got to a point where they've got their data and it doesn't quite match their systems. And there was a whole learning process that now they know whenever they get any new buildings, they know exactly what data to ask for and what format and what structure to have it in. So there is this real sort of learning curve and educational curve. It's all right having all this technology and innovation, but if we don't know how to ask for things, if we don't know what we're asking for, then it's just kind of going to sit there and gather dust in a cupboard, really, isn't it? So.
Well, that actually leads perfectly. We couldn't have planned that. We didn't plan it into the next one. Where what about? I mean, this is a strong area that I believe in. What about the truly social living aspects? Are these what we should really be aiming towards addressing? In other words, to lead into this, Kay and Tom and Richard, I'm thinking that maybe sometimes the focus should be more on the tenant rather than the fancy solutions that people want in a landlord to be able to do things better. So I'm shifting the focus a little bit and saying, what truly does the tenant need? I mean, at the end of the day, we should not forget what landlords are there to do, to look after the welfare and the living conditions of our tenants and communities. So, Kay, I'm going to go straight back to you on that one. I know you've been talking about the last one there, but again, I'd like to get your views on the truly social living aspects. Is that the goal?
Yeah, I mean, like we said at the beginning, developing a digital strategy or what digital means is about understanding not just the organizational needs, but also the occupants' needs and how to respond to those needs with data and technology. So it is really important that we understand our occupants' needs. But when you mention the term social, for me, that means lots of different things. So there's the social as in building communities and actually, offering support to people within their homes. And that could be through, I mean, Tom, you mentioned this earlier in the week about, having WhatsApp as a really simple solution to connect with your tenants and keep, sort of make sure everybody's got what they need, and are they warm enough, and are they safe enough, and all that sort of thing. But there are also other things that we can do, and this is a little bit Big Brother again. So there's some kind of like if I look at there's a banking app called Monzo, and that banking app influences people's behaviour. So the idea is that you have your sort of current account and your savings account and a spending account. And your spending account is what you can spend, buy your beers out of, or get pizza in, or takeaway, or whatever else. But you can only transfer money from your current account to your spending account.
Right.
Have good. So if you go to the gym, for example, you can put in your app that you've been to the gym, and that gives you some cash to go out and get some beers or some pizza. And that's really influencing your behavior in how you set whatever your goals are, but it's influencing your behavior to meet your personal goals through this kind of sort of gaming and I guess guilt tripping in a way about getting money in your account. So there are things that we can do. And again, I'm thinking futuristically here, we could do with tenants to make their environments better as well. And it's about influencing their behaviour in the home. So clearly, if you've got a room with black mould up the wall, that is not a healthy environment to be in. But if we are monitoring and tracking, I'm just looking at the chat there, good Northeast priorities. Yeah, we've got to get our beer in. So yeah, if we are monitoring people in their homes and we are able to give them feedback, open the window, let some air in, ventilate your space, then we are promoting better behaviour, which is making them more comfortable and healthier as well. We're looking after their health as well. And I'm also thinking, one of the things that you can give back to tenants is things like reducing rates. Well, how on earth do we save money as landlords to reduce rates? Well, one of the big expenditures is if you've got hardware and tenants who are constantly breaking things in their home because they might have a big family of small children, for example. Well, surely if they had some incentive not to break things as often, then we could influence their behaviour, again. So when I think about the social aspect, it's partly to do with how do we build communities, how do we support people to enable them to live in their homes independently and safely and comfortably and healthily and happily, but also how can we influence behaviour to give them a better living environment.
It's behaviour that's the key, I think, here. Tom, what about yourself there on that? Is that the aspect about looking towards that direction?
I think there's some really interesting stuff we can do with nudge theory on this. I think that we need to really go back and understand our tenants. We've done a lot of work with our customers, looking at people that keep the heating on and keep the windows open. Right? I mean, it doesn't necessarily damage the property, but it's not a good behavior, right? What is it that's led to that decision to be made? Almost as much as people that are living in fuel poverty and people that are keep the heating off and are making other decisions. So there's much we can do there. There's much we can incentivize. Do people even know that they're keeping their place too warm and too damp? I'm not sure that technology is going to solve all of that problem. I think technology can alert, technology can nudge, but there needs to be some sort of intervention or engagement, and it's a package of the two that will make this work with time. I think technology is much more powerful at supporting an intervention than it is to actually providing the intervention itself.
But part of the overall solution is education, isn't
Absolutely.
it? About educating, why and what is it we're trying to achieve here. Rich, what do you think in that area from your own perspective at Housing Solutions?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what's been said. I mean, there's a lot from what customers are starting to expect from other companies. So just from, I don't know, so when you're booking an Uber or your Tesco food shopping, you know exactly when that's coming, don't you? And I think one of the frustrations that we've seen is around the communication to a community. if a TV aerial was broken or a light's out of order, it's getting that message to them so that they all can discuss in one place. If there's, I don't know, if there's graffiti, for example, we've done quite a bit of work in terms of building up community. We're trying to build a community app to kind of focus some of that. And I know you said technology might not be the solution all the time, but we found that people do like to have a little discussion, shall we say, online on public forums, and that generates its own community. So what we want to do is kind of we've got an idea of working with a partner to push that into an app focused within that soul community, so that once someone mentions around litter or ASB and different things, everyone that affects can deal with, and then in turn that obviously brings everyone together. And I think obviously the current situation that we're all in, I think everyone's got to know their neighbours and a lot better than we all did 6 months ago. And I think that's definitely helped. So that there's some work that it's definitely something we need to focus on a bit more.
Totally agree on that one. I'm going to finish with a quick, before we go into the questions here. Now, it was interesting because hosting this channel, I couldn't see the questions popping up. So in the background, Stu Davison's been texting me some questions, etc., or on Slack. But you're talking about the graffiti thing. This is an honestly true story about a landlord some years ago that tried to create an app within their forum and within their landlord, and it was called PAF. And PAF, PAF, was the poop action forum, because they had a massive and lots of landlords do, and you'll know this perhaps, Rich. Dog fouling is a massively big thing in some estates. It's no joking matter. It carries disease. It's disgusting. Graffiti is very emotive as well. So they created this thing called the PAF, the poop attack force or poop attention force or something like that. It failed abysmally, and it failed abysmally because nobody could take it seriously. I wonder why. But it's about education and so on, about, and how they do these things. But it stood on its own and nobody used it. About one person used it, and they used it religiously every day to record the locations of the poop in each of their garden, back and front. So there you go. There's a funny thing to finish off with. So I'm going to jump into some of the questions and answers here. Oh my God, there's loads of them. Right, are you ready, folks? So we've got one question from Ryan Dempsey, and we heard from Ryan earlier at the Compliance Workbook. Is digital strategy the process of removing a human from a process or making the human more efficient in the organisation's key objective? God, that's a beauty. Kay, do you want to start with that? While you look to the heavens, Kay.
I was trying to sort of think that one through.
Do you want a minute?
Is it about making humans more efficient? I'm not sure if it's about making humans more efficient, but the processes that they apply more efficient, possibly. It's and from a human perspective, it's really about understanding what the occupants need and what the business needs, and how the digital strategy can support those needs. Sorry, I think I've repeated that about 3 times through this panel discussion.
But I think that's important. Rich, what do you think on that one?
Yeah, no, I agree with that totally. I mean, we've obviously we really push our digital platforms for tenants to self-serve. We don't see it as removing humans, and we haven't reduced contact centre phone numbers with staff, because we just see it as moving, where possible, transactions that can be done online to be moved online. There is always going to be the need for a human interaction, and that then just frees up their time to deal with those more complex cases, is how we see it. And from a staff time point of view as well.
I echo. I mean, I think the answer to a bit is both, but it comes down to where's the value add? Let's get the bits that humans do best done by humans, and let's get everything else done. Let's get that heavy lifting done by technology.
Yeah. So Jane Elliott, thanks, Tom. Jane Elliott asks, do you think post-pandemic that registered providers will be more open to adopting new tech, both in willingness and speed, reducing procurement timescales? What do you think to that one, Rich?
I'm quite fortunate that my organisation has always been willing and open to moving along pretty quickly. However, I think that will move on even quicker now. Definitely from one thing that sticks in the top of my mind is from a printing point of view that we've touched on about paperwork.
Yeah.
And I just think that technology such as board software and a few other pieces of software is definitely going to continue in the post-pandemic situation. We've already agreed to take out a number of printers out of our organisation to try and discourage some use as soon as staff members start going back. And this situation is just going to help that. I mean, you mentioned, Kay, was it your mum's now on Facebook or uses FaceTime? Did you ever think that 6 months ago when we were in this situation? No. So I never thought that my dad, who's shielding, would be ordering his shopping online, but he's been doing it now and he'll be doing it going forward. So, yes, the answer to that question.
I'm going to jump on, so we'll maybe take, if you want to jump in on the questions, everyone, instead of going through everyone, we'll just feel free to jump in. So that was Kay. Unless, sorry, there was a question I seen. There's a question down at the bottom there for Kay. It's directed right at you, but we'll answer that in a minute or two. This question here, housing association managers and directors who Empire build are not interested in digital, as if we're being honest. It has huge capacity to make redundancies. It's like an internal secret resistance movement. Discuss. Right. Okay. Tom, you can go
great.
first.
Thanks.
And that was anonymous. I noticed they didn't. Come on, be honest. Who asked that?
This isn't a housing association problem. This is everywhere. You know, anyone that's got a vested interest and has their sense of self-worth by the size of their army is going to be pretty resistant to remove their army, whether they're the president of the United States or whether they're the head of gas maintenance. Right? I don't see that as being any. It's just a human behavior thing. I think. What we have a challenge to do is to align their objectives to help them be better, to help them be appreciated and motivated and supported, and even better for having a team of 6 rather than a team of 60, but to be achieving more for residents, which is ultimately what we're all trying to do here, to improve the quality of life of people in rented homes.
I mean, you can see the point there, Rich, can't you? What the person's getting on about. What's your thoughts?
It echoes what I've just said, really, around that we haven't decided to, with all the digital solutions that we put in place for our customers and staff, it hasn't at the moment been around reducing numbers to make redundancies. It's allowing us to provide better services for those more complex cases, for when customers have got more detailed things. That's how we see it from a customer service point of view. And I think, and to be honest, it's really, really worked for us. Some of our recent surveys, Net Promoter Score and stuff, we have really seen that effect where the online's been taken off. But our cost, even though we've taken away some human element from certain services, through naturally people using digital methods, our customer service score and things is continuing to rise, which is really positive.
It opens up new roles, I would say, because